Okay, guys, I am extremely excited about this sermon. This is going to be the very first sermon of the year 2018. And the name of this sermon is going to be called To Infinity and Beyond. To Infinity and Beyond. And I'm sure that will sound familiar to many of you that grew up in the 90s. It's a reference to the movie Toy Story. Was a big fan of that growing up. And if you remember, in this Disney movie, you had a boy named Andy and he had many toys. And the two main characters in the movie, which were the two main toys, was a toy named Woody and a toy named Buzz LightYear. And I'm here to tell you that it's time to get ready, because this year is going to be a light year. It is going to be a Buzz light year. A very light year. What do I mean by that? Well, let me explain this light year. What I mean when I say it's going to be a light year, I don't mean light as in everything's going to be easy. What I mean by that, and listen, I also don't mean there isn't going to be any problems or anything. That's not what I mean. What I mean by it's going to be a light year is that things that were hard to achieve before are going to be much more achievable. Things are going to be much more accessible. You will have much more success this year in the things that you want to accomplish, in friendships, relationships, business opportunities, all types of different things in ministry, different ventures. Things are going to be greater for you this year. And the reason why is because the baggage will be removed. In other words, the weights that have held you down will be removed. And when the weight is out of the way, you will become lighter. And as you become lighter, you will soar greater heights, making this a light year. And here's where the buzz comes in. I remember when I was in band, when I was in school, in the marching band, and I remember when you first got in band, they would test you out to see if you could make a sound on the mouthpiece of the instrument, because if you couldn't make any noise in the mouthpiece of an instrument, it was almost no point in trying that whole instrument out altogether. You weren't going to make any noise on it, right? So I remember, and here's the thing, I played saxophone. I played a woodwind instrument. But if you played a trumpet or some type of a brass instrument, their mouthpieces were different from the mouthpieces of all the other instruments. The band director would have you, if you wanted to learn trumpet or a brass instrument, they would have you take the mouthpiece and you had to press your lips up against it, and you had to do this thing where you were like, right? That's what it sounded like before you put the mouthpiece up against your mouth. But when you made that little effect with your lips and with your tongue up against that mouthpiece, the sound that came out of the mouthpiece when done correctly was this buzzing sound. So they would say, make a buzz, make a sound on this mouthpiece, make a buzz. And the interesting thing about a trumpet is that in the Bible, the trumpet, when sounding or playing a trumpet, it would represent a victory, a charge, or triumph. And so what I'm saying is, I'm not saying you have to have a trumpet. What I'm saying is, if you would but just make a joyful noise, if you would but just give a shout unto God, as long as you keep your praise, is what I'm saying, your praise of victory unto the Lord, and you keep your baggage light, you will have a Buzz LightYear. Oh, goodness. Excited about this message. If you're following along in scripture, I'm going to start out in Hebrews 12, and I'm going to quickly jump from different places in the scripture. But let me say this. If you remember in the movie, Woody and Buzz, they both had on the bottom of their shoes the name Andy written on it in marker, because their owner Andy wrote on the bottom of them. He put his signature on them. And what happens is throughout the movie, there's a bit of a commotion between the two because Woody was used to being in the spotlight, and when Buzz came on the scene, it was as if he had to share the spotlight, and he was a little intimidated and infuriated with Buzz, and so they had some friction between them, and because of this friction, they end up getting lost together, and they're having to chase down Andy. They're having to find their way back home. And so what I'm saying is, in this message, I'm talking to some folks that are kind of like Woody and kind of like Buzz. And what I'm simply saying is, first of all, just like how they had Andy written on the bottom of their feet, you got to understand that God's signature is on you, number one. Number two, you can't be afraid to share the spotlight with others this year, because you're going to have some sidekicks. Come on. You're going to have to get your team together at some point along the way. You can't be intimidated by each other, because you guys will complement each other. The things, listen, you'll have things in common, but the things that you don't have in common will complement each other. In other words, you'll need each other, come on, to achieve things together. And just like how they had to chase down Andy, you have to chase after God. Not that God doesn't have you. We know the song, He's got the whole world in His hands, right? Of course He does. I don't even understand why they have to say the whole world. I mean, what, do you think He just has a piece of it in His hand? He just got Alabama in His hand. Of course He's got the whole world in His hands. So He's got us, but still, you must still chase after God wholeheartedly. And the heart is going to be a very, very important subject matter in this sermon. For those of you that have a big heart, get ready to use it. Use it the most you probably ever have in your life. But for those of you who keep your heart closed off, you keep walls around your heart, you keep your heart icy cold and stone hard all the time, it's time for the stoniness of your hearts to be moved away. It's time for the calluses to be blown away. It's time for a fresh beating heart that is open to receive love. So it's time for people to love the hardest they ever have, and it's time for others who have had their hearts closed off to receive love. This is how the teams and the sidekicks are going to come together to achieve great things this year. Hebrews 12, just looking at this one verse, the first verse, very popular verse, it says, "Wherefore, seeing we also are compassed about with so great a cloud of witness, let us lay aside every weight and the sin which does so easily beset us, and let us run with patience the race that is set before us." So this year, let me say this year is like a race, if you will. Not so much about competing against others. It's just that you have your race to run. You have things to do. In other words, you got to stay on track. You've got to stay focused on God and stay on track and keep moving, keep chasing after Him. So again, it's not so much about competing with others. It's not that type of race, because not everybody's going to go the same pace, and that's okay. But it's about, listen, setting the pace and going the pace that God has put before you. So it's talking about laying aside every sin and every weight. Listen, we'll put it this way for the sake of this sermon. You ever heard that saying, the good, the bad, and the ugly? What I'm saying to you in this message is, you must get past not only the bad, but the things that you also think are good, but really it's a weight that's holding you back. And when you get past the bad and what you think is good, let me say that again. When you get past what you know is bad, but also what you think is good, listen, you can get to where the ugly in your life is changed to beauty. In other words, you get beauty for your ashes. Oh, goodness. Okay, so there's the obvious bad to move from, But then you have things that you think are good, but really they're holding you down. They're weighing you down. They're keeping you from being light, from having the light year. So what happens is you can buzz all you want to, you can praise, but you can only go so fast until the weight is removed. So, for example, and it may be different things for different people, but I'm going to say this because I think this is a big one. Sometimes the problem is what we call emotional baggage. We get hurt over the years by people, and we build up these walls, and we say, oh, I don't want to let anybody in, and I don't want anybody close to me, and blah, 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 blah. And so we miss out on great people and great opportunities because we won't let go of emotional baggage. It's something that weighs you down because it keeps you from getting your sidekick. It keeps you from getting your team formed. It keeps you moving slow if you do move, because you're so suspicious and paranoid of everything and everybody. And you're weighed down. So you think what you're doing is good by holding on, purposely holding on to these insecurities and this paranoia. But what you think is good is really bad for you. It's a weight, and it's a slow death. It's a slow kill, baby. Oh, goodness. Okay. But if you can get past the bad and what you think is the good, the ugly, once again, can be changed into beauty. Next place, 2 Samuel chapter 1 verse 17 says this, and David lamented with his lamentation over Saul and over Jonathan his son. What's this about? Earlier in this chapter, what happens is someone comes to let David know that Saul and Jonathan have been killed in battle. Now, as I start getting into explaining this, let me say this. Saul was the bad in David's life. Jonathan was the good, but he was the weight. Let me explain. Saul was king, right? He was king over God's people. God had sent Samuel to go to the house of Jesse to anoint David to be the next king, even though it wasn't quite time yet. So God anoints David to be king, but he has to go back to continuing to be the shepherd boy that he's been until it's his time. But God chose him because of his heart. David had a big heart, and his heart was after God's own heart, which is what made God so impressed with him. He said, you know what? I already know. Listen, he might not be fully mature and fully ready yet, but I know this is the one that I'm going to use when the time is right to help my people, to lead my people. He's going to be perfect. He's got heart, and his heart is after my heart. It's not quite time yet, but because I'm so excited about him, let me go ahead and start working some stuff out now. So he puts David on the map, so to speak, even though he's still a shepherd boy. So time goes by, and David is one who is very much rejected by people. But he still loves God regardless of how other people are towards him, even though it seems like he doesn't have much going on in his life. So what ends up happening is, over time, there's this moment of David coming up against Goliath. We know the story of David and Goliath. You had God's people, the Israelites, led by Saul, and then you had their arch rivals, the Philistines. They were always into it with them. But one day, this giant, this champion named Goliath, steps out from in front of the Philistines and challenges God's people. It says, hey, come at me, bro. As we would say it today, he challenges them. Come on, come at me. I'm the champ. Get somebody from y'all's camp to come out against me, and let's see how this goes. But everybody was afraid. It says they were afraid and dismayed. They didn't know what to do. And Saul was back there being a weenie, hiding behind everybody. He wouldn't even come stand out in the forefront and try to battle Goliath. He was just back there looking some type of way, feeling some type of way. So this plays out, and David comes on the scene, and he saves the day. He kills the giant, and Saul, amazed, takes David into his home and treats him as if he's his own son and loves him. But The women start bragging and talking and singing songs about how awesome David is and how he has killed so many in battle and how he has accomplished so much more in his short time than Saul has in his reign as king. And Saul doesn't like this. Saul becomes a bit intimidated and jealous and paranoid of David, even though David was of no threat to him. So suddenly he began to want to kill David. So David has to stay on the run from Saul for so long. Saul starts sending people out to try to find David and have him killed. Even there came a point where Saul himself went out to try to seek after David. And there was an amazing point in the story where David has an opportunity to kill Saul. He's in this cave and Saul doesn't see him, and he comes up behind him and he has the chance to take him out, which would solve a lot of his problems, because not only would he not have to be on the run from Saul anymore, but it would possibly open up the door for him to step in place as king faster. But he doesn't do it, not because he's afraid of Saul or because of what other people will think or say, but because he respected Saul, because he knew that he was God's anointed. Even though Saul was in the wrong, David still knew that he was God's anointed, and he was going to respect how things played out, and he was going to let God deal with Saul accordingly when the time was right. But it still kept problems going on for David. So we see that Saul was the bad. Jonathan was the son of Saul, and David and Jonathan had a close bond. Many people just look at it as a good friendship, nothing more than just brotherly love, but it was even deeper than that. They actually had a very intimate relationship, even so to the point where in this lamentation further down in this chapter, close to the end, we see that David says about Jonathan that he was so lovely and pleasant, and that his love was greater than that of any woman's. And so we see how much David loves and adores Jonathan. So he would be considered the good, or at least in David's eyes, the good. But the problem is this: even though Saul is gone, Saul is dead, if Jonathan had not died in battle as well, there would be people that would say, well, I get that maybe David should be next in line to be king, but if Jonathan is still alive and he's the son of Saul, then it only makes it right for Jonathan to be next in line. So even though it was sad that David had to lose Jonathan, Jonathan was actually going to be a weight that would, oh goodness, that would so easily possibly beset him from becoming the next king, or keep the time that it would take spread out even longer than necessary. So even though it hurt David, and you see just how big of a heart David has, because he doesn't just lament over Jonathan, he laments over Jonathan and Saul, even though Saul did him so wrong. But he still laments over both of them. He still grieves over both of them. He still has a little funeral for both of them, if that's how you want to put it. He mourned the loss of both of them. However, him getting past the bad and what he thought was good but was actually a weight now opens the door for the ugly in his life to be made beautiful by God. It helps him get closer to being king. It helps him get closer to doing great things for God and for God's people, and to simply having a better life than what he has had, because he's had it rough. He's a great guy who has had it rough and who has been dealt some very harsh cards in his life, but finally it's his moment to live the life that was meant for him to live. His ashes would be made into beauty. If you move forward to chapter 4, verse 4, it says this: and Jonathan, Saul's son, had a son that was lame of his feet. He was 5 years old when the tidings came of Saul and Jonathan out of Jezreel, and his nurse took him up and fled. And it came to pass, as she had made haste to flee that he fell and became lame, and his name was Mephibosheth. What's going on here? Listen, after all this time of learning things about Saul and Jonathan and all this, that all of a sudden, after all the chaos plays out, and after the death of Saul and Jonathan, suddenly we find out about this character named Mephibosheth. And Mephibosheth is the son of Jonathan. But we didn't hear about him much prior to this because he had been abandoned. What we see here is this. There was a nurse holding. Now listen to this, because listen, somebody needs this right here. Check this out. There's a nurse holding Mephibosheth when he was little. The nurse hears some bad news. The nurse takes off running. As the nurse flees, she accidentally drops Mephibosheth, and it says he became lame in his feet. He endured an injury during his fall that caused him to be lame in his feet. Some people look at it as the fall made him totally crippled, unable to walk at all. Some people view it as it wasn't so much he couldn't walk at all. He just walked with a really, really bad, severe limp. He would struggle to walk, but it would be really useless for him to really try to walk much. But however you want to look at it, he suffered a terrible injury that would affect the rest of his life and would cause him to not be at his best. He was still Mephibosheth, but he wasn't at his best. That kind of rhymes. Mephibosheth at his best. But anyway, but he wasn't quite at his best. Let me pause here and say this real quick. Many times people have a New Year's resolution. And everybody has a New Year's resolution that's a little bit different. Some people say, well, with the new year coming up, I'm going to stop smoking. With the new year coming up, I'm going to spend more time with the kids. New year coming up, I'm going to save my money better. People have these different things that they're going to strive to do in the new year. And one of the most popular New Year's resolutions is to lose weight. Well, I'm saying in this message that it's not so much about losing weight as in what you would call fat. It's more about losing what holds you back, that type of weight. But the other thing that people will throw in is they'll say, man, it's because it's going to be a new year. It's going to be a new me. New year, new me. New year, new me. That's what they always say when people start talking about New Year's resolutions. They then turn around and say, well, new year, new me. It's going to be a new me. What I'm here to say is that in this year, it's not so much about you being a new you. It's about you being the real you. What I'm saying is so many times we think year after year we're going to be a new us, but things don't quite shape out the way we imagine it. And it's because we try to be something or someone that we're not so that we can say we're brand new. But really the goal needs to be that we need to be the real us. In other words, what I'm saying is to move forward, it's as if you really got to go back and dig down deep in you and find out who you really are. Pull the real you out that you keep hidden, that you hide, that you're ashamed of, that you don't want people to see and really know. It's time to be the real you. It's time to melt the ice that you keep around your heart. This ain't the year to let your heart be an ice box. Remember that song? I got an ice box where my heart used to be. No, you're not so cold, so cold. That's you listen, that can't be your theme song this year, baby. You gonna have to just let it go. Like the movie Frozen, let it go, let it go. Listen, you gotta let it go. It's time to be the real you, not try to be new, but be real. Be who you really are. Not, I got to keep it real, right? Like everybody says, no, be the real you. Be who you really are, but that you've hidden. Be the best you can be. Mephibosheth, listen, young in life, he goes through an injury that causes him to not be able to be the best him, the real him. But things are about to change for Mephibosheth, as we're about to see. But let me say this real quick before I move forward. There's people right now who you're like Mephibosheth. There have been times in your life, many times in your life, where it seemed like things were going good. You were being held. You were being loved. Uh-oh. And all of a sudden, when you least expect it, when things seem to be going so good, there's bad news. Like what we see in this verse, there's bad news. The one who was loving and holding you and caring for you takes off out the door. And as they take off, they dump you. They drop you like a bad habit. They leave you hanging. And it's almost as if you're injured. In other words, it hurts so bad. It hurts so bad when they left you. It's what seemed to be such a good time. They fled and left you hanging, feeling injured and feeling sorry for yourself. And it seems like that same process has happened time and time again. Come on. So you end up feeling like Mephibosheth, abandoned, unheard of by folks who should have already heard of you and gotten to know you a long time ago, rejected, left hanging, no one to help you tend to your injuries, many of which are really just heart injuries, hurts, pains, aches, fears, sorrows. Let's see what happens. 2 Samuel, still in 2 Samuel, but chapter 9, this is what it says. And David said, "Is there yet any that is left of the house of Saul, that I may show kindness for Jonathan's sake?" David has such a huge heart that after all the commotion plays out and so many people of the house of Saul are gone, he still says, you know what, now that I'm in charge, is there anyone still alive? Anyone still around that I can be good to? And he is informed by a servant that yes, there is someone, Mephibosheth, who was the son of Jonathan, who got left behind. And we find that he was left behind in verse 4 in a place called Lo-debar. And the interesting thing about Lo-debar is this: Lo-debar means not a pasture or pastureless, because of course the names of people and even places in the Bible oftentimes have meanings when you go back to the original Greek or Hebrew. So Lo-debar meant pastureless, or a place of no pastures, a place of basically a place of dryness and barrenness, not much going on. So what has happened is Mephibosheth is left feeling like he has nothing left to offer, and he's a barren person who's been left behind in a barren land, a land that has nothing to offer. But look at what this says. And maybe, let me say this, maybe some of you are feeling that way. You're Mephibosheth and you feel like you have nothing to offer, nothing to give anyone. And you think, why would anyone love me or be good to me when I have nothing to give in return? Verse 8 says this. Well, no, look at verse 7 and 8. It says, "And David said unto him, Fear not, for I will surely show thee kindness for Jonathan thy father's sake, and will restore thee all the land of Saul thy father, and thou shalt eat bread at my table continually." So David meets Mephibosheth. He says, don't be afraid. I'm going to show you kindness, and I'm going to restore you. I'm going to give to you what was of your fathers and your grandfather Saul, and you are going to eat at my table continually. I'm going to make sure you are taken care of. In other words, he's saying, I'm going to love you. I'm going to take care of you. But look at what it says in verse 8. "And he bowed himself and said, what is thy servant, that thou shouldest look upon such a dead dog as I am?" He's saying, Mephibosheth is saying, I feel like I'm just a dead dog. I feel like I have nothing to offer you. Who am I? What am I? You're a king. I have nothing that I can give you. I have nothing to give anyone, but surely not someone who seems to have everything going for him. He's saying, I am just dead weight. But what Mephibosheth doesn't understand is that what David has just walked away from was the dead weight. See, as Davids, you have to understand when something is dead weight and when something isn't. He already walked away from dead weight. He already mourned over the dead weight. And now he's having his light year. So in his light year, his Buzz LightYear, because we know David was a man of praise. He loved to praise God, write psalms unto the Lord. In the process, he's saying, let me get my team together. Let me find some folks to be good to. And what he's really doing, whether you realize it or not, is he's being good to people that really he can relate to. See, Mephibosheth can't understand why David wants to be good to him. He's looking at it from the perspective of, I don't have anything to give. But David is doing what he is doing from the heart. David is not expecting much in return. It's not to get something out of doing this. It's not to get something really from Mephibosheth. It's because he has heart. And the truth is he can relate to Mephibosheth. See, even though David can walk, he knows what it's like to be rejected and left behind. When it was time for him to be anointed as king, when the man of God was sent to Jesse's house to anoint him, David's father Jesse at first didn't even acknowledge David. He had all his other sons lined up to see if they were the ones that God wanted to anoint. And after trying his sons numerous times, finally Samuel says, okay, are you sure you don't have another son that might be the one? And finally Jesse's like, well, I do have this one other son. It's David. He's out there tending to the sheep. You know. And then even when David went out onto the battlefield to bring food for his brothers while everybody's standing around shaking in their boots because of Goliath, he goes out there to serve his brothers, and they're just like, well, what are you doing out here? You don't need to be out here. So rejected by father, rejected by brothers, not looked at as much by anyone until he destroyed Goliath. But then after Saul turned his back on him, many other people in the kingdom turned their back on him as well, and he had done nothing wrong. So he knows what it's like to not only be rejected, but to be taken in and held and taken care of just to be dropped. Oh, goodness. In other words, what I'm saying is, the truth of the matter is, even though it seems like David and Mephibosheth are two different people, the truth is, they're the same person. The only difference is one of them can walk. And the crazy thing about it is, David shouldn't, listen, he spent more time on feet walking than he should have. Oh goodness. Now he's a king with horse and chariots. But really, he should already been riding around horse and chariot, riding around horseback a long time ago. He spent so much time of his life going through stuff that others before him didn't have to even endure before they became king or before they got in high places. He was going around having to fight lions and tigers and bears, oh my. His life was the Wizard of Oz, wasn't it? He was going through some stuff. That's what he told Saul. Remember, I fought the lion and I fought the bear, so I know I can take out Goliath because I got the eye of the tiger. No. But seriously, so he's gone through so much. He knows. So they make a team. And this is what came to my mind thinking about this, getting ready for the sermon. It's like this. It's as if Well, hold on. Let me read this to you. Let me read this so you can see what I'm saying. Look at verse 9 and 10. It says, then the king called to Ziba, Saul's servant, and said unto him, I have given unto thy master's son all that pertained to Saul and to all his house. Thou therefore and thy sons and thy servants shall till the land for him, and thou shalt bring in the fruits, that thy master's son may have food to eat. But Mephibosheth, thy master's son, shall eat bread always at my table. So, listen, after Mephibosheth is saying, oh, I'm just a dead dog, why do you want me around? David makes accommodations for him. And it's like this is what I thought of. It's like this. It's like if you're at a football game and you see the coach. The head coach is standing there, and the teammates, everybody on the team is around him in that, in that semicircle around him. And the coach is giving them that pep talk, and he's getting them ready, and he's running some plays by them because this is a big game, and it's getting close to the end, and they're getting close to scoring that final touchdown. This is the big moment. He's got to have all his star players out there on the field. He's giving everybody a chance to play, but now the star players got to be out there, and he's breaking stuff down for them. And all of a sudden, one of the star players is just like, Coach, I don't know, man. I'm tired. I'm wore out. My feet hurt. My legs hurt. I feel like if I keep running, I'm just gonna fall. I just feel like I'm about to be lame in the feet. I just feel like, I can't go on. I'm not Celine Dion. I can't go on and on and on. And he's just like, y'all know the song "My Heart Will Go On." But anyway, so he's like, I just can't go on and on and on. I just can't do it. It's not the Titanic movie. I just can't do it. And the coach, instead of listening, and instead of sitting the one that thinks he's about to be lame on the bench, what he does is he keeps him on the field, and he wants to run the plays, but he adjusts the plays just a little bit. And what he does is he tells certain people, okay, you make sure you stay behind him, and you make sure you stay in front of him, and you just make sure that he don't get tackled, okay? Break, go. Right? In other words, he's saying, I'm keeping you out there. You're a star in this. You got to do this. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to make some accommodations, and I'm going to make sure some people are around you to help you out, to keep you from having to push so hard and to keep you from getting tackled. Listen, I got you. I got you because I need you in this. I want you in this. That's what David does with Mephibosheth. Mephibosheth is just like, I can't do this. Why do you want me around? I have nothing to offer. And instead of really saying something to Mephibosheth and addressing his problem, he turns and looks at everybody else and says, okay, this is what y'all need to do to help out Mephibosheth. Listen, you guys, y'all till the ground, y'all get the fruit, and y'all bring bread and make sure he's fed, and y'all, you guys that were the servants of Saul, y'all serve him now, because the truth is, really, y'all should have already been serving him, but y'all left him hanging. Y'all should have did a search to try to find him, but you didn't. But now that I done found him, he's here, and what y'all need to do is help him and serve him the way y'all should have already been serving him, but wasn't. So, yeah, I'm just throwing that out there. I'm just throwing it out there that y'all should have already been helping the guy out. But I'm just saying, I'm just throwing that out there. Y'all, you know. So I'm not going to listen to y'all have a pity party about having to help somebody you should have already been helping. So, whatever though. Whatever. He's like, I got you, Mephibosheth. I'm not even going to listen to the complaining. I'm just going to help you out. I'm not even going to address it. I got you. That's what he's saying. Here's the interesting thing about that. If you go to Psalms 23, a very popular psalm that David wrote, and we see God bless David, but the same way God blessed David, David was able to bless Mephibosheth in the same way, because a lot of times when we're blessed, the blessings pour out from God unto us, but then some of the blessings pour from us out unto those that are attached and divinely connected with us. So look at this. Starting at the beginning of Psalms 23, it says, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. And we know David, he was a shepherd, and he's saying, well, now we see the Lord being my shepherd. Verse 2, he maketh me to lie down in green pastures. If you remember, I said that Mephibosheth was left in a place called Lo-debar, which meant no pastures or pastureless. So, oh goodness. So God brings David into a place of green pastures, and it goes on to say that he was led beside still waters. So a place of green pastures and still waters. Listen, God enlarged David's territory and gave him a beautiful place, a place of much progress and production and fruitfulness. And so it gives David the opportunity to take Mephibosheth out of his pastureless place into a place that is also filled with green pastures. Oh, goodness. So he was blessed to be a blessing to someone else. God being his shepherd and he's being Mephibosheth's shepherd. Verse 3, he restoreth my soul, and he leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. David made it clear that he wanted to restore Mephibosheth of what should have been passed down to him. David's like, yes, I might be the king, the leader, and I've inherited much, but there are some things that I don't need to take. They should be passed down unto you, and I'm going to restore you to your rightful place at this table, Mephibosheth. So David is restored by the Lord, and David restores Mephibosheth. And just like God leads him down paths of righteousness for his name's sake, David said, hey, Mephibosheth, I'm going to do what I'm doing for you for the house of Saul for Jonathan's name's sake. See the connections here? Verse 4, yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. What did David tell him? Don't fear. Don't be afraid. I'm here to show you kindness. Because I know you've been in some shadows. I know you've been living in people's shadows, watching them walk by, watching people just live and do their thing while you're lame. For thou art with me, thy rod and thy staff comfort me. He's comforted by God. David is. David turns and comforts Mephibosheth, who hasn't been comforted probably since the nurse comforted him before dropping him. Verse 5, thou preparest a table before me in the presence of my enemies. David is saying, God has prepared a table for me, and Mephibosheth, I am letting you sit at this prepared table. People have been talking about me, Mephibosheth. They're fixing to talk about you too. They forgot about you. But now that you're attached with me, oh goodness. Now that you're my teammate, now that we're divinely connected, now that I got you, people are going to talk about you too. There's fixing to be we fixing to be the talk of the town, buddy. There's fixing to be some rumors about us, but guess what? The enemies are watching us eat at the table prepared by the Lord. It says, thou anointest my head with oil, my cup runneth over. And like I said, blessings poured out unto one and then falls down unto the next. Listen, David's cup runs over. It flows down into the cup of Mephibosheth. And finally, verse 6, surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life. And I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Goodness and mercy, the mercy of the Lord has followed David. And we know God had goodness and mercy on David out of all of what he brought him out of, turning his ashes into beauty, turning the ugliness in his life into the beautiful. And we see David do the same for Mephibosheth, show him goodness and mercy and kindness when others weren't doing it and forgotten about him and was acting like he just didn't exist. And I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. That's what David says about the Lord. And then David sets it up to where Mephibosheth gets to be in his rightful house forever. The house of Saul, or what was the house of Saul or Jonathan. Okay, now moving on, finishing this up with a story that is one of my favorite stories of the Bible. It's in Acts chapter 3. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to read the story to you, but I'm going to take it and I'm going to go back over it again in a different way from a different perspective to help get some points across for this message. So I'm going to have you use your imagination a little bit on this. So starting at the beginning, it says this, Acts 3. Now Peter and John went up together into the temple at the hour of prayer, being the 9th hour. And a certain man lame from his mother's womb was carried, whom they laid daily at the gate of the temple, which is called Beautiful, to ask alms of them that entered into the temple. Who, seeing Peter and John about to go into the temple, asked an alms. And Peter, fastening his eyes upon him with John, said, Look on us. And he gave heed unto them, expecting to receive something of them. Then Peter said, Silver and gold have I none, but such as I have give I thee. In the name of Jesus Christ of Nazareth, rise up and walk. And he took him by the right hand and lifted him up, and immediately his feet and ankle bones received strength. And he, leaping up, stood and walked and entered with them into the temple, walking and leaping and praising God. And all the people saw him walking and praising God. And they knew that it was he which sat for alms at the beautiful gate of the temple. And they were filled with wonder and amazement at that which had happened unto him. So what has happened here in this story is this. You have this lame man. We see another lame person, someone that has issues with walking, and they're sitting outside of this gate called Beautiful. And it's said that they are sat in that same spot every single day. No other gates, no other places, but just specifically that same spot every day. And every day this person asks for alms. So people that pass by that feel sorry for this person gives money or whatever charitable gifts they have to offer to help this person out. And so what happens is Peter and John, some disciples of Jesus, they're on the scene. They're walking by. And this lame person looks up at them, wants their attention. Peter and John give attention. And Peter says this, I don't have silver and gold. That may be what you're asking for. That's what other people are giving you. I don't have that, but what I do have, I'm going to give unto you. In the name of Jesus Christ, rise up and walk. So the gift that is given is Jesus, or healing in the name of Jesus, right? And it's a wonderful story, and the man takes the offer and takes his hand, he picks him up, and they're happy, and the guy can walk, and he's joyous, and he's praising God, and he walks with Peter and John, and the people around that see this are looking in amazement at it. And it's a wonderful little moment. But I want to look at it from a little bit of a different perspective. But before I do, let me lay down just a little bit of groundwork. Let me share a few things with you. Check this out. First thing that I want you to see is that this is a heart moment. Peter here has heart. And I know it's talking about Peter and John, but Peter did all the talking and the action came from Peter. So no offense to John, but let's just kind of ignore John. So here's Peter. And Peter has a heart moment. Why do I call it a heart moment? Because he offered Jesus Christ. Whenever ministering Jesus Christ to someone who doesn't quite fully have Jesus, it is a heart moment. But let me really explain why. Why is this a heart moment? See, it takes heart to even fully believe Jesus. It takes heart to believe in God. See, it's one thing to believe with your mind. And we all believe things with our mind, but we believe things that are easy to believe. We believe in things that we see and tangible and easy to touch. But to believe something you can't necessarily see or hear all the time, it takes belief on a different level. It takes a faith. And this faith has to be in the heart. It's a belief from the heart. Why? Because when it comes to the heart, listen, the heart will override the mind. The mind a lot of times goes by what's rationality. It goes by logic, but the heart overrides logic a lot of times to believe things that oftentimes wouldn't make sense to believe. That's why when people are in love, they have the tendency to do or say things that they normally wouldn't say. They will do things that normally that same person will be like, I'm not doing that. That's crazy. Or people are going to look at me like I'm stupid. But because they're in love, their heart has them doing and saying stuff that their mind normally would be like, That's why we say, oh man, the things we do for love, right? So it's a heart moment. It's a heart moment to offer Jesus, but especially to offer this to someone who could have just been like, what? Why are you trying to offer me some Jesus? I'm trying to get some money, you know? You know what I mean? So it took a heart moment, a heartfelt moment for Peter to do what he did. So this is a heart moment. Now that's the first thing to point out. So now focusing away from Peter to the lame man. First thing you have to understand about the lame man, first of all, is simply put, he is a receiver. He's not a taker. He's not a giver. I'm going somewhere with this. Let me say that again. This lame man is not a giver. He's not known for being a giver. He's known for taking. That's what he does every day in that same spot that he's put in. He takes, he receives from people passing by. That's what he does. And it would make no sense to really give because all he'd be given is the stuff that he just received. So that's what he does is he receives. Second thing about him is that he's a people watcher by default. That's what he does. He has to watch people that pass by to get their attention to beg. And many of us are people watchers. Many of us sit around and watch. That's what we do on social media, right? That's what we do on Facebook and all the other social media sites. We like to sit and people watch. We watch what people do and say, and we love to see the pictures posted, and we love to see what people are tagged in. Why? It's an easy, quick way to get to know some things about people. And a lot of times we try to get people all figured out, putting together puzzle pieces, trying to figure out stuff about people. And we can see who folks hang out with and the type of person someone is, right? So a people watcher. But there's one more thing I must point out, and it's this. It says that he's begging and receiving alms. Now, I love the fact that it says alms instead of silver and gold, even though that's what he was receiving. And you might be thinking, well, what's the difference? When you look up what alms means, you have to understand that, yes, it does mean to receive money or charitable gifts, specifically through mercy or pity. Yes. So you think, money, you think silver and gold because that's what was being received. But here's the cool thing about the fact that it says alms instead of just money that he's receiving. The cool thing about that is that we can now look at this story from a different perspective because the truth is alms really can have a deeper alternate definition. You see, yes, it can mean charity and we think money or charitable gifts, but you've got to understand that in the Bible, and I've explained this before, in the Bible, there are times when you will see the word charity in certain places in the Bible, but it doesn't necessarily mean money. It means love. It means love. That's why sometimes you might read like the King James, for example, and you'll see the word charities in certain spots in the Bible, but you might read like a more recent translation like the New King James, and in that same spot that it would normally say charity, it says love, because that word that charity is translated from oftentimes means love rather than money. So if alms is charity, if charity is one of the definitions, even though in this story it makes sense to believe that it means money or charitable gifts, you also have to keep in mind that it could also, in a different context, in a different light, mean love. Now the person is receiving alms in the context of money, but again, keep what I'm saying about love in mind. So now that I've said all this, let me bring this together for you. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take this story and shift it a little bit. Usually people call this story the story of the lame man sitting at the gate, the man at the gate. But I'm going to rename the story Peter and the Receiver because it rhymes. Peter and the Receiver. And it's almost as if this is what's happening. So let's look at it. it's as if Peter, looking at this story from a different angle, is coming up to the lame man. And I'm not going to call the lame man, I'm going to say lame person. So that way it can be for a guy or a woman, the lame person. So open your minds up for what I'm about to do here. So this is what's happening. It's like Peter comes up and says this to the lame person. You think that I'm so much better off than you because I'm walking, and you assume I have so much to give. But the truth is, I really don't have much to give, just like how you don't have much to give. However, the one thing that I do have just so happens to be the very thing that secretly you want, but you're not fully honest about it. And that's love. That's something from the heart. See, everybody else that walks by is giving you material possession. They're giving you money. They're throwing money at you. And you act okay and you act satisfied with it. But the truth is, even though you get alms in the context of cash, really what you want is alms in the context of love, but you're afraid of it. See, you're afraid of being held and picked up and cared for because there's the fear that you might be dropped like Mephibosheth. There's the fear that you're just going to be dropped off and left hanging. And so because it's easy to downplay the fact that you want love because you're so sure that people really don't truly love you because of your situation, because of your condition. No one can really love you because you don't have much to offer. The truth of the matter is, even though you act like you're okay with just the alms that you are getting, you really want love, but you would rather act like you don't want it, because in order to have love, there comes this long-termness with it that is scary to you, because there's always that what if. In other words, you're more comfortable getting this type of alms from people, the money, because it's just a temporary thing. It's a temporary moment. The money's temporary. The people that pass by are temporary. The attention they give you for that moment is temporary. And even though it would feel better to have something that lasts and isn't temporary, that scares you. So it's easy to just continue to receive the temporary. But deep down inside, if you're honest, you're hurting. And so it makes sense that the place you would sit at every day is the gate called beautiful, because this beautiful scenery is really covering up the ugliness on the inside. The ugliness that is that is your life, that is your situation. It's really just a mask, just like how you pretend that the cash they throw out is enough. That short attention that they give you is enough. It's all just covering up what's really there, what's really in you. So with that said, I don't know your personal business. I don't know what you do with the alms you are receiving. I don't know if you're saving up the money. I don't know if you're spending it on food to live on. I don't know if you're just wasting it. I don't know if you're spending it getting drunk or getting high to try to get by, to numb yourself so that you don't have to face reality day by day. I don't know what you do with that alms, but I'm just letting you know that out of all these people, I am the one that has the alms that really you actually want to receive. I'm here to give you love. I'm here to give you something from the heart. I'm here to give you something that lasts. I'm not here to give you something temporary. I'm not here to just throw money at you and give you a short moment of attention because you entertain me for a moment. That's not why I'm here. It's more than just an entertainment factor. I'm not just doing this because I feel sorry for you or because you smiled at me and it made me feel good, so I'm just going to throw you some cash or give you some attention for a moment and then leave. Oh boy, I'm getting somewhere for somebody. This is love. So here's the cool part. Well, the cooler part. The cool part is I actually have the thing that you really want the most. But here's the even cooler part. The even cooler part about this is even though you're a receiver, even though you're a taker, I'm a giver. So this is like a divine moment right here. This is the perfect match. You're not big on giving, you're a receiver, but the funny thing is, that's my favorite thing to do is to give. That's all I know. You see, it's in me to be a giver anyway, but the fact that I am a follower of Jesus makes me even more so the giver. And listen, you got to understand, I know that you watch me. You're a people watcher. You can't help it because of the situation you're in, because of your condition. You just kind of watch people, and I know you see me, and I know you see me walking around, and you've been watching and trying to figure stuff out, and surely by now you see that usually when you see me, I'm either by myself or there's very few you see me with. I hang with the other disciples, but we don't even hang out all together all the time anyway. You see, right now I'm just here with John. And a lot of times I'm not with him. I'm just kind of wandering around. You know why? Because I take Jesus seriously. See, I'm following him, but a lot of people who claim they know Jesus are not really serious about following him. Uh-oh. See, we got a lot of people around here. They say they believe on Jesus. They say they saw him, and listen, thousands were fed by Jesus in the miracle of the fish and the bread being multiplied. And there were a lot of people delivered from these demons and people healed and all these wonderful miracles happened. People, listen, were taught and preached to by Jesus, and they learned so many things from Jesus. But even though these thousands or perhaps millions of people were impacted by Jesus, after the fact, they went on about their merry way. So they had an encounter, they had a moment, but then they moved on. As if what happened didn't just happen. They're not really out sharing the gospel. They're not really out trying to live the life that they've been taught. But since I'm one of the 12, since I'm one of the minority that's kind of sort of taking this serious, it causes me to be a bit of a loner. Matter of fact, it causes some people to not like me and to want to have me stoned because of what I'm willing to stand for. So you lead a lonely life, but the truth is, so do I. So you think we're so different, but really, just like how David and Mephibosheth were kind of the same, really, the two of us are kind of the same. We really have a lot more in common than you probably realize. So the question is, are you ready to receive? I mean, that's what you do anyway, but are you ready to receive what it is that you actually really want? Are you ready to open your heart up and receive what you actually need to receive to get out of the condition that you're in? Oh boy. Look at this. And this is the last thing I'll read. Verse 11, the first part says, "And as the lame man which was healed held Peter and John," and that's enough right there. That says it all right there. He's healed, he gets up, he can walk, and he's holding Peter. The other question is this: not only are you ready to finally open your heart and receive the love that you really want and be the real you, right? Because remember, I talked about that, being the real you, not just a new you, but the real you. Not only are you ready to receive the love that you've been missing out on, but the next question, and the really big question to you, is, can you stand to be openly loved? In other words, can you stand to not be ashamed or embarrassed of other people seeing you be loved? See, sometimes when we really get love done, a lot of times we're ashamed of who cares for us or who loves us. And so we act funny in public and say, oh, well, I really like this person, but, I know people are going to look at me funny and they're going to point at me and they're going to have stuff to say because of who I'm with and who I'm talking to. Oh, goodness. Can you stand to not only be loved, but to be openly loved? See, it's one thing to be quiet for a while. That's fine. But there's always going to come a point to where it's brought to the open. Why? See, what you have to understand is, even though you're getting what you want, it's really not about you, and it's really not about the person that's giving you the love. It's not about any of that, really. It's about Jesus, and it's the impact of what you do and what you receive. It's about how that impact on you will impact others when they see it. See, as I've said, this was a divine moment. This was God bringing this moment together, right? So with that said, yes, he was helping them out, but it was something that was also to bring glory to him. Because as people see the lame man healed and living and being his true self and being his true potential, being the real him, people have a moment where they got to pause and say, wow, look at what God did. Look what the Lord has done. God did this. God set this up. God put this together. God ordained this. God caused this to work out. For real? Man, if he did it for them, he could do it for me. I want that too. Do you see what I'm saying? See, in other words, even though you get to receive, you're really not being selfish if you go about it the right way. Because when people see it and they're impacted by it, God gets glory. So you benefit, but if you go about it the right way, God gets the glory that he was trying to get in the first place. And other people will suddenly be the real them as well. Because they say, hey, I want to be blessed like that. I want that type of help. I want that type of love. I want that type of relationship. I want that type of friendship. I want that type of a sidekick. I want that type of a teammate. I want that type of associate. I want that type of coworker. I want that type of boss. I want that this and that. That's what it's about. So, as I've said, the Davids or the Peters in this case, we got to have our hearts open. But for the Mephibosheths and the lame people at the gate, we also have to have our hearts melted from the frozenness. We have to be open again to receive love, for the connections to come together. I love how there was healing that took place in this story, because that's really what it comes down to. It's a healing. Oh man, there's healing in this. There's healing in this. It's one thing to say, I've been, I just been wounded. I've been hurt so bad, and And you may say, I don't know how to let go of the hurt, but the funny thing is, it's just about being willing, because once you're willing and you do what needs to be done the way it needs to play out, the healing happens. We just saw it in the story. All he had to do was receive what he was being offered from the heart. He had to receive it in his heart. And then, oh my goodness, and then healing took place. But he couldn't be embarrassed about it. He couldn't try to hide it. So he just kept going along with it. He just grabbed a hold of Peter, and they were just walking in the temple to praise God together. And that really messed with people's heads, but that was the best part. I'm going to share this last thing with y'all, and I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up. Yesterday night I was at work and something funny happened, and I knew I needed to share it for this sermon because it just ties into it so well. I was at work, and then there's this friend of mine, this coworker of mine, who, whenever she's there, she's real silly. She, goofs off sometimes, and she'll be talking to me and just being goofy about stuff. So she's kind of fun to goof with sometimes. But she was there, and you know how at some places of employment they have labels for stuff, like labels for products, and sometimes it may come in the form of a tag or just a piece of paper or a sticker or something like that. Well, she had a sticker, something printed off on a sticker, and she was she was down on one end of the whole working strip for us that worked there. She was down on the end that the majority of the people were at, and she's down there, and she's messing with people, just being funny, trying to put this sticker on people. And when she kept trying to put the sticker on people, this label on people, they were just like, get that off me, not being mean, but just, taking it back off of them. And she would put it on somebody, try to put it on somebody. And then she went up to the last person over there and was trying to put this little sticker on them. And they, was like, no, I don't want that on me. So she comes down to the end that I'm at, and I'm the last. I love how this just played out perfect. It just played out like this. Like, it just so happened to play out like this. And I knew God was up to this one. So she comes over to me, the last person, and she puts the sticker on me, like on the back of my shoulder. She walks by and puts it on me. And she just kind of walks by and just kind of like stands there and watches to see how I react. And I'm just like, oh, okay, cool, and I just keep working, like, okay, whatever, because used to, at one of the places I used to work at, I was always putting like little stickers and stuff on me just to be goofy. So I was like, oh, okay, yeah, okay, cool, no big deal. I don't care how I look. I don't care if I look goofy with a sticker on me, because it is what it is. It's just a sticker anyway. So she sees that I'm cool with it, and she gets excited, so she starts yelling down at the people on the other end that wouldn't wear the sticker, and she's like, see, Kobe will wear my sticker, Kobe wear my sticker, and I go along with it like, yeah, I'll wear it, and then she says this, she says, man, she says, y'all rejected my sticker, y'all rejected my heart. And I jumped in with her. Yeah, y'all rejected her love. Yeah. But she was like, Kobe's got it. And I was like, yeah, that's right. and so all night, I wore the sticker. I didn't take it off. Matter of fact, I didn't even take it off till I got home from work last night. But it was just funny how it played out like that. And all night, the girl that she had went to before me to put the sticker on that, kept, was taking it off all night. She kept messing with it. You took off my sticker, but Kobe's wearing it, just messing with her. And I'm just proudly just wearing that little sticker, just like whatever, But I share that little real life illustration to say this. Don't be afraid to wear somebody's sticker. And of course, I don't mean literally you have to wear a sticker, but you get what I'm saying. You got people who, they're good folks. They get denied, they get rejected. But then the right moment happens, and they place the sticker on somebody, and the person receives the sticker, and then it's nothing but joy after that. Get where I'm going with this? So yeah, just think about that. And maybe some of y'all listening, maybe you caught more in the illustration than I did. Maybe there's just something a little extra that I didn't even catch that you needed. But just marinate on that little illustration there for just a moment. Right? Okay. I'm going to go ahead and pray us out of here. Thank you all for listening. First message of this year, and I have enjoyed it. It's been a blast. Heavenly Father, I thank y'all. I thank you for this word. Lord, I'm very excited to see how it impacts people, and I'm just thankful for it, Lord. Lord, I pray that people will continue to have open hearts to give. And I pray that those who have had their hearts closed off open their hearts to receive. Lord, I pray that people begin to come together to team up, to form divine connections and relationships and marriages and friendships and associates and co-workers and everything, business partners, all that people begin to team up, that they come together like Woody and Buzz for the light year, so to speak. Lord, I thank you. I thank the people that tuned in to watch me wear this goofy outfit. And by the way, let me say this. I thought they were blue monkeys on the suit. I don't know if you can see it that well. See right there? And I was told they were Yetis. And I was like, what's a Yeti? And they were like, it's kind of like Bigfoot. And I was like, oh, okay. And then I looked and I was like, I'm going to keep calling them blue monkeys because that sounds cooler. But anyway, I thank you all for watching. And Lord, I give you all the praise, the glory, and the honor. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.